Hello everyone and welcome to another SuncatByte. During today's SuncatByte, we're going to continue on with our discussion on functions. We're going to talk specifically about function prototypes and function calls. Now if you remember from our SuncatByte on function definitions, you need three things for functions. The one we've already gone over is the function definition. We also need a function prototype. Prototype. This is sometimes also known as a function declaration. And then a function call. Okay? And what the purpose of these things are, the definition is what you would think. It's the code that defines the function. The prototype tells the compiler that the function is coming. It's basically a purpose is for the compiler, and the call uses the function. Okay, so let's talk about the prototype first. So there's a few things with it. Number one, before a function can be called, calling function must know about the called function. So the calling function is where the call happens. The called function is the one that's doing the work. Okay, and for it to up to this point and in our initial programs, the calling function will be main. Later on, you can actually call functions from other functions. So the prototype must be declared in the calling function before the call. It can appear above the calling function, or it can appear in an include file. So when we get into multi-file programming, it'll be an include file. For now, it will just be above the calling function, which will be main. So it'll be above main. But the main point is the compiler has to see the function before it's called. And then the form looks like this. Oops. So we have return type, and then the function name, and then the input parameter type list. So for instance, it could be int, if you remember this from before, calc rectangle, and then int width, int length. So this would be the return type. This would be the function name. Standard convention would be to have that as a cap. Then the parameters, an integer for width and an integer for length. Okay, this statements, again, have to be seen before the call. So here's some examples of the different functions that we can have, or different types of functions. So let's look at all of these and our function prototypes. Okay. Get rid of that. So there's a program called the C++ hotel program, which you have, and these functions are from there. It's in our sample code. But first off, we have void hello world and void write greeting. So these guys have no input and no return, right? So basically they're used for output. The void tells us that there's no return type, and then the fact that these parentheses are empty means there's no inputs. So it's just it's used for output to the screen, to say hello world, to say write greeting. These ones have no inputs because this is blank, but it has return types. This returns a double, an int, a string. So again, because these have a semicolon, these are prototypes. It's telling the compiler that these things are coming. And basically it allows the compiler to reserve memory. Here's this one that our friend Walter White might use, called CalcMethProfit. And it's going to have, in this case here, 2 inputs and a return type. So produced, meth produced, and price, and then we have a double, which should be a lowercase d there. As the return type, it's going to return a double. This one, so that has 2 inputs. This one has 3 inputs, people, nights, room type, and it returns a float. Here's one more that the type we haven't seen yet that has inputs, so 4 inputs, int for people, int for nights, string for room type, float for cost, but no return type. So this one's going to output something but not return anything. And it's going to use these variables in the output. Okay, so that's just the prototype. So now we've looked at function definition in a previous SuncatByte. Function prototype, right? Prototype has to come first. So this has to come first. Then you'll actually have a call, and then the definition. That's going to be the way that the code flows when it actually is executing. Okay, so prototype, this is where the work's done on the definition. Here's where the call is. So now, let's talk about the function call. So a few things about the call. First thing is, call is the C++ statement where the called function is accessed or used, like I said before. When a function's called, control is passed to the called function and the statements inside that function are performed. Okay, and when we say statements inside that function, those are the statements inside of the function definition. Okay. Controls return to the calling function when the functions are completed. And in this case, when it's has a return type, it's going to be when it sees the return statement. Otherwise, it's going to be when all the code has been executed inside of that function. Okay, and the call statement requires that just the variable names be used. So what does that mean? It means that when you call a function that has input parameters, you only use the variable name. So if we're looking at this one here, calc cost, the call would look like this. Calc cost. And then just people, nights, and room type, like that. This is going to be how you use this. It assumes that these variables were already defined, and then they get passed into the function. That's the function call. All right, looking at some of the other functions that we had. And since it's a calc cost, you would want to capture this, so you would typically say int cost equals this. So in this case, we're going to do what's called value returning functions, or call by value, I'm sorry. And what that means is that we're going to pass these values in, it's going to do something, and when it returns a value, that value is going to be here, be returned here, and it gets assigned here. So you have to have that assignment operator when you have call by value. So in this case, it's going to be the things that are non-void, like these, are going to be called by value or passed by value. So let's take a look. Actually, okay, so looking at some of these other ones that we've seen before, with the get how many people, how many nights, get meth produced, all that stuff. Another Walter White example. Function calls for those would look like this. These are let's see, that was ints, right? Let's see. No, double int string. So that would be a double here. Int. And let's say that this was already declared. This could have been, it didn't have to be on that line. You could have room type like this as well. String, room type, like that. And then room type equals. So these are the function calls. That's the call, 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 call. And then this is the assignment of the result on the other side. All right. So tying this all together, let's take a look at an example here, and then we'll also do an example in Visual Studio. All right, so this example, let's go ahead and put this on the next page so you can see it clearly. We have IOStream, and we have a function that's going to swap. Okay, so first, here's our function. Here's the three pieces. Function prototype is here. Remember in your code you see that first. Function call is here. Function definition is down here. So we have our prototype. It's a void, no value returning, and we're going to pass two things to it. Int x, int y. Okay, and then where are we here? Yep, there's that. So then what happens in the flow of the program is we're going to come in and we're going to say A equals 100, B equals 200. So before swap value of A is this, after swap value of B is this, and actually this is not going to work. So this is a bad example. So let's scratch this because that's not going to work. So let's forget that example and let's actually jump over to another example. The swap would have to be passed by reference, and we don't have that at this point. So this is going to be called by value. So keep in mind that these are our function calls. And then let's jump over to our example, another example, which would be here. So program 4.1 is going to be a version of something we've already seen, which is ask for name and age. So all we're basically going to do here, and this is without function. So if you look at 4.1, we're going to come in, we have IOStream and string here. And then we're going to go a little bit further down. We're going to have an integer for age and a string for name. We're going to say tell the user hello. Then we're going to tell them what's your name. We're going to do a get line to get the name. Then we're going to say how old are you? And then they're going to say give us the age with the C in. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to say C out hi, my name, you are, and just basically output, right? So this is all within main and no functions. So if I build this, and I run it without debugging, it's going to ask for my name. I'm going to say Bo, how old are you? I'm 21. And it's going to output, hi Bo, you're 21 years old. Easy enough, right? So now what if I wanted that to be done in functions? Well then, I still have include IOStream and include string, but then I have my function prototypes. So void write hello, that's taking this piece here and making a function out of it, so it's just going to be output. It's not going to return anything, so that's why it's a void. Then string ask for name. I'm not passing anything to it, but I want to ask for the name, so it's going to return the name, so that's going to be a string. Here I'm going to ask for the age. It's going to be an int, so that's going to be that's why I have an int return type. Here it's going to be output, without returning anything. So I'm going to pass in the name and the age here, and then those are going to be written to the output. So I have my prototypes. Remember, this is step 1 here. Prototype's got to be first. Then I have my calls. Main is my calling function. My calls occur here. Write hello. So what happens when I come in, I go to write hello, and it actually jumps to the definition of write hello. It comes here and it executes this code, hello from a C++ function. Then control will return back to main. I have ask for name, so it looks for ask for name. Ask for name is down here, so it says string name. What's your name? Then I do the get line and return the name, or get the name here. So now CN is where I get it from, and it goes to name, and then I return name. So if I input Bo, now when I come back in, this is going to be Bo, then Bo gets assigned to name here. That name and this name are different, so just keep that in mind. When I go for age, and that, we'll have another SuncatByte on scope, and that's where that comes into play. Now we have age, ask for age. It's going to jump down to ask for age here and do the same thing. Notice we have a cn.ignore there. We should always do that right to remove that enter key, and if we would have asked for these in the opposite order, then it would still work. If we didn't have that cn.ignore there, it wouldn't work. Here we're going to have, so then if the name is or the age is 21, 21 gets written here. Now, right, name and age, which is going to be Bo and 21, it's going to pass the value of those variables to here to write, so it's going to say, hi Bo, you are 21 years old. Let's make sure that that's how this works. So we'll start without debugging. Notice it asks, just as the other program, how old are you? 21. And it says, hi Bo, you're 21 years old. There you go. One little key thing that I want to show you with the debugger when you're doing this, I know we've gone over the debugger before, but if you're running a program with functions and you want to start with debugging, and say you put the breakpoint there where the function call occurs, you can then jump into that function by going to debug or hitting F11. If we do that, it goes right into the function. Then I can put a breakpoint here, for instance, say continue, it goes there. If I don't want to be in the function anymore, I can come in and just say step out, and it goes back to where the call was. So I just wanted to add that piece of things for you. Okay. So that's the end of that. Any question, comments, or concerns, shoot me an email, ask me in the discussion board, or see you during office hours or lab hours. Till then, take care. Bye.